Okay, guys, this is Health Nibble number 90, and we talked about last night, you know, at Midwest Functional Health, we deal with a lot of autoimmune issues and neurodegenerative issues with kids and elderly, a common thread that we're finding some of the latest research and is that there's a lot of heavy metals problems. And we talked about the susceptibility to when you are exposed to heavy metals comes from leaky gut. That's the leaky gut is a big part of it, and plus generational toxicity. So, the idea that you can get, you can get heavy metals passed down to you from 4 generations. So, what would that be, like your great grandma? Mm-hmm. So you could be getting metals from your great grandma. You couple that with, leaky gut and increased exposure from our environment, and we have some problems, some neurodegenerative problems. And some of the, we talked about autism being on a huge spectrum. And we have autistic clients coming in on our functional medicine side that we take care of and have really good results with some of them. But like I said, that's across the board. That's a huge spectrum. So some are really injured and some aren't so much. So I say that because I just want to be really objective when we read this testimonial from a mother that I knew that the mother and father as patients, and they decided to enroll their autistic son in a detox program with us. And we really didn't promise anything, but we know that there's lots of cases where these kids get better when they start getting detoxed. And so why not? I mean, we're definitely not going to hurt them. So and I encourage it. So anyway, it's been a 7-month journey, and in this case the results have been remarkable, and we're still not there. And so Erin's a little better at reading out loud, so she's gonna actually read this testimonial.
We cut out parts of it because it is a little lengthy, but
yeah,
we're gonna sum it up as best we can here.
Yeah. So basically, it's a story about her son was normal and happy, and then at 1.5 years old, he cried for what was it? You can read it. So why don't you just go ahead and read it, and then things changed from then on until he came into our office, and we've been, he's been under detoxification for 7 months and has had some really significant improvements.
It's been an amazing journey to watch.
Yeah, almost unbelievable, actually.
Okay. When he was 1.5 years old, he began to scream uncontrollably for no other reason that we could see, but having just woke up. At first, my husband and I thought it was an extreme phase that would pass. Our son was always smiling up to this point, and we've done nothing but what the doctors had ordered. He was up to date on his vaccines, and we ate organic, non-GMO foods. His grin would always be ear to ear with not a hint of anything out of the ordinary, until this new distressing cry that seemed to come from a sense of confusion lodged itself into his life. We finally chose to write it up as the recent move and a new early morning babysitter schedule. When the crying subsided, we noticed his hands would be held close to him with his wrists usually bent down, and when he extended his arms out, that his fingers would be wound around each other as if he didn't have full control of his hand movements. He seemed to have to move in an undesired way in order to get to where he wanted his limbs to go. For example, his head would go down and to the left before he looked up, or his shoulder would fall back down before he moved forward. There was the bathroom door that had to be shut 12 times before he could move on, and his inability to communicate despite the tears and mumbling random incoherent words. He seemed by all rights to be trapped inside of himself, unable to explain how he felt and incapable of feeling what he should. While the rest of the family talked and shared, he would sometimes just growl or hum loudly to interrupt what he couldn't be involved in, which was simple conversation. At 2 years, we were at a family, or 2 years ago, I should say, we were at a family gathering where my son went up to talk with an adult. He said a few words. Yeah, go ahead.
This story here is at 6 years old. So, you know, and I will back up that the parents, I wanted to interview them, but they wanted to protect his identity, which I completely understand. So he's 8 now. This is at 6 years old, and the movements when he came into the office were like he would look down and to the left and do this with his hand. So she described
curl
that.
Up in a ball,
and
yeah.
curl up in a ball in the chair. She described that perfectly, based on our observation.
Okay. So they're at this family gathering. His son went up to talk to an adult. He said a few words as the other adult said, "Oh, you wouldn't be able to," another adult said, "Oh, you wouldn't be able to understand a word he says." Beyond that obvious sad statement was the fact that my son understood what was just said about him. This broke my heart, that even relatives could say with such casualness, where my son fit in the family was the one who cannot understand. You cannot understand, without regard for whether or not he could understand you. It put fear in my heart for what the outside world would do. So we dug deeper and found Dr. Sally Fallon's GAPS diet. During this time, we changed everyone's eating habits, which is much easier than you might think the reason to make the change. We were introduced to videos through Dr. Nagel and his wife about Dr. Pompa and True Cellular Detox. Dr. Nagel told us of some videos we could access online detailing what is really going on with our son's cells and what could be possible for them. The idea that my son could grow up to be married with a career was and is beyond words. The state he was in 1 year ago today, there would be no question of him living with us and being monitored every day of his life. Slowly, his language became more clear, and his sentences became longer and longer to a point of hardly a quiet moment. His body control became more firm and defined. During the second phase, my son, previously showing not the slightest hint of being able to recognize himself as to where he fit in emotionally in the family or how he viewed his life on any level, said clearly, "Dad, I'm not cool." This crushed me, but only for a moment. My son thought of himself and could express it. So with this excitement, I went on to explain that none of us in the family are cool. We are all a family of dorks. And he said, "Yeah, but I'm not smart." Not skipping a beat and riding on this newfound self-reflection ability, I told him this story after story of his accomplishments. My son was at the age of 8 and finally able to self-identify. What a blessing. Every created being has the ability to express him or herself. Why should my son be any different? What a nightmare it would be to see and hear exactly what others can, but be unable to identify real emotion and controlled thought through it. That is where he was before treatment, a boy unable to, by all rights, be fulfilled as a child. He was just autistic. The world would have us think that our children are incurable and that we must cope with this new disease called autism. But thanks to men and women like Dr. Pompa, Leonard, and Nagel giving their lives to the healing of autism and exposing the source, removal, and rebuilding up of the mind and body, we've seen our son go from mumbling incoherent words while crying for 4 or more hours, sometimes all day into the next, on and off, over not getting the same amount of peas as his brother or a glass of water not being full to the brim, to now a boy who expresses himself almost daily how he feels about growing up. He's able to be a young boy and has a place in the family that brings him and us as parents joy. He recently told me, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to do something crazy like eat the last cookie or put my underwear in the dishwasher." These are words an 8-year-old should be sharing. These are 8-year-old thoughts. No clenched fists, and tears from an inability to communicate or an expression on any level beyond total disruption. Praise God for the healing and the Nagels for giving their lives to change for the better of others. We will be forever grateful for the improved life our son has, even at this early stage in recovery. It takes time. It takes money. It takes hope and prayer. But how much time is ever wasted on healing? How much money is ever wasted on recovery? And how much hope is gained from prayer? If you have a child stamped and sealed as autistic, please know that there is a cause. It is known, or it couldn't be removed. It can be removed, or we wouldn't have our son as he is today. I decided to remain anonymous so that one day soon, my son can choose for himself to tell his story, and of his own free will, that is becoming clearer every day that he possesses. May God bless you and your family and lead you in the direction of healing.
So, you know, the point of that, I really wanted them to be interviewed, you know, whether it be live or video, and it's to, you know, so parents understand there are options. You know, historically, everybody tries, you know, the DAN protocols. That's what we did in the mid 2000s. And, you know, with fish oils and probiotics and gluten-free and casein-free. And so detoxification just goes further upstream. You know, gut issues, I mean, we definitely address those, but, you know, it is possible with all people. I mean, that if they're toxic and you remove those toxins, that they're going to improve. So hopefully this, you know, you've been reached by this testimonial, because I know we have.
You sure have. Yep, it's been pretty fun to watch. And I got a big old hi, Aaron, the last time you came in, so yeah. That was pretty special.
Yeah, from not talking to hi, Aaron, how are you?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, that's your health nibble.
We'll see you tomorrow.